Well, I don't know if you've ever had the experience of driving with your vehicle and the engine light comes on. It's not a good feeling, is it? The only time that ever happened to me, I was pulling uphill a heavy tent trailer, which probably way too heavy for the vehicle I had. And the engine light came on. And it was only about a minute from the top, and so I kept going. Apparently that was a big mistake. My mechanic told me I shouldn't have done that. And that extra minute resulted in my engine needing to be completely replaced. Live and learn, right? Well, today I want to use this automobile picture of engine trouble and describe 3 stages that I think a complete recovery we need to pass through in order to really experience, I think, the benefits of recovery. So welcome aboard. It's great to have you on episode 101.
Guys ready?
When it comes to porn, are you stuck, spinning out, or slipping backwards in your life? If so, then welcome to the Finding Traction podcast, a show dedicated to those who are looking to gain recovery momentum away from porn and toward the life and relationships they have always hoped for. Now, here's your host, Vern Tomke.
I had somebody recently say to me, you just had your 100th episode and there was no big to-do, no big fanfare, like what's going on? And I said, well, it just kind of crept up on me. And before you know it, I had passed 100. And so I don't know, at some point we'll have to do a belated celebration or something. But let me just say, if you have been enjoying this podcast, I encourage you to do a few things. Tell people about it. Pass it on if you're in a recovery group, SA, Celebrate Recovery, some kind of group. Let people know about it. Apparently, it also really is helpful if you review it or you do some kind of review or leave a comment. So anyways, if it's helpful, take a minute and do that. And I've just got some great feedback over the last few years as to some of the topics and how they've helped people, I guess, in different ways. So anyways, it's great to have you on board. Let me say, today was the first day of school. I was out for a walk, a beautiful day, and all of the parents were walking their kids to school. I walked on my walk past an elementary school, and you could see the freshness. It was the first day of school, and there was an excitement in the air. Or at least that's what it looked like anyways. And I remember taking my, that whole experience of your kids starting school in a brand new year. And so we are, of course, starting a brand new fall season. And football season is here this week. If you didn't get a chance to hear our great football prognostications on Porn Free Radio, go and check out Porn Free Radio and you will get the real skinny, the real truth of what's going to happen in the coming football season, 2023. And you can take the things we say as gospel truth because, we really do know what's going to happen this year in football. But let me also say I'm in the process of starting 2 new groups. I do a group for people that I just call them professionals and pastors, people who are in ministry or different sorts of roles. I do a group for guys like that. We walk through our Finding Traction course. I've also got a waiting list. I think I've got 2 or 3 guys waiting to start a regular group of guys. We walk through again, Finding Traction course. So I think I've got 3 guys. I'd like to get 2 or 3 more guys for that group. So we want to start that over the next couple of weeks. So if you're interested in joining a group with me, I lead the group. We walk through 52 weeks of the material that I've developed. Then please send me an email, bandofbrothers.care@gmail.com. You just might say, okay, I'm finally at the point where I think this is the next step for me if I'm really going to get clean and free of this stuff in my life, the things that are causing me so much turmoil and so much grief and pain. So towards that process, I want to share with you what I think are maybe 3 stages that I think we need to go through if we are going to fully experience and fully enjoy a complete recovery. And again, I just, in my mind, these are kind of 3 distinct things. Maybe next podcast, I want to talk about getting into a little more details of maybe some markers on this journey. But let me break up this recovery journey into 3 stages. Stage 1 is I'm just going to call breaking the habit. Or using our automobile example, getting the engine turned off. So let's say your car's still, your automobile, your car, your van, your truck, it's still running and the engine light's on. So you pull into the mechanic, shop. And one of the first things he'll say is, okay, I see that or I hear that. Okay, go ahead now and turn your engine off. So, well, why do I need to turn my engine off? You ask, of course. And he would look at you funny and say, well, you want me to work on it, right? So most of us, if we have been involved in porn for any period of time, we know what it is like to have our sexual engine turned on. It's not just that the vehicle is on, but it's like we have got our accelerator pedal pushed to the floor, or there's a brick on the accelerator, our pedal. And porn has a way of doing that. It super inflates, supercharges, super fuels our sexual drive. And the engine of our sexual energy is racing. It's roaring. It's beyond even what is normal and natural and biological. And the very first thing that I think in working with guys that I think is really necessary to start this road to recovery is we need to deal with the habit. This is a habit that we've probably developed over months and years, some of us decades. Doug Weiss talks about that old Pavlovian experiment where dogs have learned to associate the ringing of a bell with food being offered to them. After a while, all you had to do was ring the bell and the dogs would begin to automatically salivate. Sounds familiar, right? Which led him to this line, ring the bell, feed the dog. Ring the bell, feed the dog. Well, a lot of us have had the bell ringing and feeding the dog for a long, long time. So we go through, as soon as somebody rings the bell, all of a sudden we begin to salivate. We have that habit developed in our life. Other people call it brain cookies or the brain buzz, right? So anybody who's ever taken Psychology 100, first year university course, or maybe even in high school, you've heard of this guy called B.F. Skinner, and I think he was the father of the understanding of classical conditioning. So whenever we do something that makes our brain feel good, it gives us positive reinforcement. Our brain remembers and goes, wow, I like that. Let's do it again. The more we do that thing, the deeper and stronger the conditioning, and the more automatic our response is to those triggers, the ringing of the bell, those conditions. So breaking the habit, which is really the very first step, is all about breaking that habitual conditioning. And we do that in many ways in the course, in how we work with people. It's all about creating distance and friction between you and that automatic habit. It's about re-engineering, that distance and friction could be, for example, having covenant eyes on your phone or your computer. That is an example of, you type something in and you go, oh, I guess I can't go to that site. That's on my block list. Oh, that's right. So you just don't, whenever you have one of those automatic responses, it doesn't just immediately take you to the source of your reinforcement. Or it's about other ways we break the habit. It's about re-engineering your environment to make new habits more likely, new good habits more likely, and old bad habits less likely. It's what Benjamin Hardy calls outsourcing your willpower. Breaking the habit is about learning to recognize the cyclical patterns of your acting out and learning to reverse engineer that cycle for different results. That's where that stopwatch cycle lessons come in. I actually had a guy that I coach, buy me a physical stopwatch. And it's a great little reminder of that. That's part of breaking the habit. It's about creating a plan to deal with those upcoming bells or triggers that go and being proactive, learning connections with others, people that we can reach out to. That's all about breaking the habit. There's a great book out there that I really enjoyed. It's called Atomic Habits, which walks through about how to disrupt old habits and how to develop new automatic habits. Right? Many of us, our habitual brain is just looking for that brain buzz. That's how it became embedded. Some people call things like porn, they call it an extreme habit. But let me just say this, like any habit, they can be broken and replaced with new habits. It is completely possible for any one of you. It is not insurmountable for you. That is the very first step, turning the engine off, stopping the cycle, breaking the habit. And that's the first step in a complete recovery. But it's only the first step of 3. The second step, stage 2 of this thing, is dealing with the underlying issues or fixing the motor. So now your vehicle is in the shop and now they are going to begin to fix the underlying problem. And what I mean by this is where you begin to look at the reason why porn became so embedded in your life. There's a line, if you've listened to any porn recovery podcast for any period of time, you've heard different variations on this quote. Porn is not your main problem. It is your favorite solution. Right? And so the natural question from that is, well, a solution for what? And if we're going to answer that question, I think we're going to need a couple things. First of all, going back to our automobile or vehicle word picture, we're going to need the help of a mechanic. I have tried over the years to fix my own vehicles. I remember once I had a timing belt issue, and I did my very best to fix the timing belt on my vehicle, which apparently is a pretty difficult fix for the uninitiated. But I thought, this is before YouTube. It shouldn't be hard. And I can't remember if it lasted me for a few days or a few miles, or I never even got the car started. I can't remember. But I soon realized that I do need help. I need expertise, because it's hard for me to look inside. It's like somebody, if you've never had a mirror and somebody asking you, what's the color of your eyes? You go, well, I don't know. You tell me. It's very hard for me sometimes to deal with some of these underlying issues. I think that's where the second thing comes in. So it could be a mechanic. That could be somebody who's trained in helping people or listening or working with you. But the second one, or a mentor as well, is the feedback and support of a fellow group of travelers. Oftentimes I hear as people tell their stories, I hear the truth of my own story, and it gives me wisdom and insight into what's going on with me as I hear these things played out in the lives of other people. So, with the help of a group of people, with the help perhaps of a good mechanic, mentor, counselor, whatever that is, I'll just give you 3 or 4 things that I think you're going to have to ask yourself if you're going to deal with some of these underlying problems or issues behind or that are causing all of this fuel that have turbocharged this porn problem. I think one is you're going to look at some of the formative pain in your life. What is the formative pain that you deal with? You've learned to medicate that with porn. So how are you going to bring healing or rehabilitation to those core wounds in your life? That, I think, is something that you are going to have to answer. And for years, I think I was in my 30s before I really started understanding some of those core wounds in my life. But that's a part of it. Formative pain. Number 2 is you're going to need to look at some of those core unmet needs. There's a great book out there. I have a guy that I coach, and I've started to look into. It's called 7 Primal Questions. Those are around 7 core needs in your life. And you can look through and go, what is my core primal need? And when that is unmet, how have I tried to stuff that with porn? So you have to ask yourself, what are those core needs? How am I wired? And in what ways are those core needs not being met? So first one is formative pain that you've sought medication in. Number 2 is core unmet needs. Number 3 is you're going to need to learn to understand your emotional landscape. How and what are those emotions that I always run to porn with? How do I learn to deal with those emotions in a healthier way? Now, emotions can be about negative emotions can be about unmet needs, or maybe some of those emotions are tied to triggers from early experiences in your life, but you need to learn to get a handle on that, get a grip on that, learn to understand how that is associated with your porn use. And number 4 would be, this is some stuff from Jay Stringer, what are those things that particularly arouse me, and why do those hold such an attraction for me? Am I trying to recreate something? Am I trying to escape something? What's going on, and why do certain things and certain arousal patterns hold such a magnetic pull for me? All of those are pretty deep things, aren't they? But in all of that, you're starting to ask yourself the question, okay, what solution? And, porn is a solution. Okay, solution for what? What am I using porn about? Because let me say this, if you don't get to asking and finding answers for some of these questions, your recovery will always feel at one level like you are white knuckling it. You're always just trying to break the habit, but you don't know why you have the habit, right? Breaking the habit is good, stage 1, but stage 2 is where you really learn and lean to go, okay, what's going on, and how do I need to address some of these underlying issues? Now that's stage 2. Now there's another whole stage, stage 3. I'm going to call this the Delta Force or the Navy SEAL stage, because this is a stage that I think I am really trying to learn to understand and just trying to figure out. And it's probably the hardest stage of all, and that is a stage of recalibrating your sexuality and the way you interact with the world around you. Now, in this example, remember stage 1, it was about turning the engine off. Stage 2 was about fixing the problems with your engine. And now stage 3 is about, let's say you got a convertible, it's you putting the top down and learning to drive this new vehicle out on the open road. All right? So what does that mean? Well, learning to deal with the world in a whole new way is about now dealing, let's say, with women, is as in a whole new non-objectifying way. There's a verse in the Bible that talks about dealing with, the opposite sex, your women as, for example, sisters or mothers or daughters, not consuming or objectifying them, right? You go, oh my goodness, well, I'm just not looking at porn. But you're talking about something way beyond that. One of the guys that's been so thought-provoking for me is the writings of Andrew Bowman, who does a lot of work is a sex therapist, Bauman. And he has these two terms. One of them he calls the pornographic mindset to the world around us. That's the way we view the world around us. And then a pornographic style of relating. This is how we deal with the people around us. And he's talking about learning to identify those and then learning to live in a whole new way. Having a whole new set of relationships with people. For example, I know people and they kind of dealt with breaking the habit, and they maybe are learning at some of their underlying issues. But when it comes to living in the world around them, they still deal with the world around them through a threat matrix. Everything around them, the big bad sexual world, they're going, remove yourself from every possible source of temptation. Don't go to the beach. Don't go to the water slide. Don't go to football games because there are cheerleaders there. Everything is a threat. Remove yourself, pull yourself away. It's like those early monks or the Essenes, that's back in the 1st century. They all moved out to the desert to try to remove themselves from all sources of temptation. Well, you can live that way, but that's not recovery. This third stage is all about learning to recalibrate the way you see and deal with people. So you run across an attractive woman, even a beautiful woman. You go, oh my goodness, I can't talk with her. I can't be anywhere around her. I can't look at her. Well, that's not recovery. Recovery, and Andrew Bowman talks about learning to deal with beauty in an honoring way, not a consumptive way, where you're consuming their beauty, you're yearning, you're trying to possess their beauty. It's having relationships with women without trying to pickpocket them, so to speak, and get your unmet needs met. You go, oh my goodness, Vern, that is a whole different level of recovery. That would be like, I'm not even sure I can get there. Well, I'm telling you, that is where the full benefits of recovery come in. That is not just living in a state of remission. That's living in a state of recovery. That's where you see yourself as a safe person, and you become a safe person to the people around you. We used to have this guy in university. I won't use his first name, but everyone, oh, that's so and so. He just felt like an unsafe person. You could just tell, he was leering. He was just an unsafe person. Well, we might not be there, but we're talking about truly being safe people to others. We're talking about being able to go into situations and being confident in our recovery, being confident in the way we're relating to women, being confident in the way we're dealing with people. That's the goal of recovery, a complete recalibration of our sexuality. That's why I call it the Navy SEALs version of recovery. And in our automobile picture, it's the idea of getting your new convertible with your newly fixed engine, putting the top down, and getting on the open road, and now in the best possible way, putting your foot to the metal and just letting the wind go through your hair and just flying down the road. That's the picture I want to leave you with. So there you go. 3 stages of recovery to challenge us to think about. Next lesson, I want to maybe move into some more granular steps along that way. But here's to your recovery, and here's to you learning to truly enjoy your recovery to the fullest. We'll see you next time.